Hi, how's everyone doing today? I'm Ranger Aimee. I work at Lava Beds National Monument in Tule Lake, California. Not there right now, as you can probably tell. I'm here in my living room. I'm working from home, so trying to make this my new national park of sorts, living room national monument. So I've made my own little lava tube cave, and I'm hoping that we can try our best to bring one of our education programs to you today. We typically offer three different education programs, one of which is a PowerPoint presentation we normally do in our Mushpot Cave. So we'll be doing that one today, the Earth Erupts. So build your own lava tube cave here in your living room, turn the volume up, and let's get started. All right, hope everyone has their living room caves made, all nice and cozy and ready for the Earth Erupts, the volcanic story of Lava Beds National Monument. So Lava Beds is just one of over 400 units of the National Park Service. We've been around for quite a while. We'll talk a lot about that geologic history today, but as a protected park since 1925, really wonderful place to work. I really enjoy it. We'll keep moving for our presentation today. Lava Beds is also a really fun place to visit, and it's named for the geology of the region. And so then where did all this lava come from? It came from volcanoes. So we have a really funny image here of a drawing of someone standing on like a fault. It looks like by all these volcanoes in the background. Maybe wouldn't be quite the best place to be, but we'll be going over a few different things today. So volcanoes and volcanic processes, volcanic geology of lava beds, features of a lava tube cave, caves as a habitat, that's one of my favorites, and about exploring some caves at lava beds. And now to focus for a bit on the Earth beneath the surface. So we have an image here of the crust, layers of the mantle, and then the inner and the outer core. And so a high density metallic core generates temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. And it's this heat that drives volcanic processes. If the Earth was scaled down to the size of an apple, I think if I click, we'll get our apple. Yep, there it is, Granny Smith, my favorite. The Earth's crust would be no thicker than the skin of this apple if that was the size of the Earth. So the crust, very thin, but very valuable. Birth of a volcano. So you have an image here of the word magma with an arrow above it. And when magma, which is hot molten rock beneath the surface, rises through a weakness or a fracture in the crust, a volcano is born. So we have magma again with that arrow, and I think if I click here, yep, there our arrow goes. It's going up through that fault. And then whenever that molten rock gets to the surface, it's called lava. And there's a couple types of lava, and the chemical composition, the gas content, and the temperature of that magma is going to determine the eruptive style and the structure of the volcano that's produced. So we'll talk a bit about the lava here in a bit. Pahoehoe and First, let's talk about our friend basalt. So basalt is the most common volcanic rock at lava beds, and it's actually the most common volcanic rock on the entire planet. And on the left, it looks so different, but those are the images, both of them are both basalt. The image at the left is a sample of really porous basalt, and then at the right, we have flood basalts that are exposed along the Columbia River Gorge. And then in this picture, again, more basalts, but look really different. These are columnar basalts at the Devil's Postpile National Monument in Eastern California. I haven't had the chance to make it down there yet, but I really hope to someday. And these are formed by contraction when a lava cools. So interesting they can cool in such a crazy pattern like that. Extensive flood basalts can also be found on the surface of the moon, which will hopefully never be quite that close. All right, so back to Pahoehoe. So one eruptive style of basaltic lava is called Pahoehoe. And Pahoehoe lavas are relatively fluid. They often take on like a really ropey appearance as the cooling surface of the flow is propelled forward by the molten lava within. And so we have one image that is more of like a fresh Pahoehoe, kind of in the top left And then the bottom right, we have what it looks like when it's hardened and crusted over. And then this is a photo of Pahoehoe in action at the Kilauea volcano at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And Pahoehoe, super fun word, really fun to say. I hope you've been practicing it. It's a Hawaiian word meaning smooth, unbroken lava. And the other type of eruptive style of basaltic lava is called aa. The surface of an aa flow consists of a jumbled mass of these angular blocks that formed when the congealed crust is broken as the flow slowly moves across the landscape. It's a Hawaiian word meaning stony, rough lava, also to burn or to blaze. If you were to walk on aa, even whenever it's hardened, then you imagine like if you like to try to walk barefoot on like a parking lot, there's a lot of gravel. You kind of go, That's why it's hurting your feet. Would be very similar, again, even when it's hardened and it's cool. And a really wonderful example of lava at lava beds is at the Devil's Homestead. And that came from vents from Fleener chimneys about 10,500 years ago. And that flow actually originated as a Pahoehoe flow, but then it cooled and congealed and changed to an type flow. And so here we have a nice photo of the Devil's Homestead. We've got to talk about a few lava rocks now. Really fun to chat about, obsidian. So that's a high silica lava rock. It owes its glassy appearance to the rapid cooling of the parent magma. The lava chills on contact with the surface before any molecules have any chance to align themselves in any sort of organized crystal structure. And the most recent eruption at the Medicine Lake volcano that we'll be talking about a lot later, sometime between 800 and 900 years ago, and actually made a large obsidian flow, and that's known as Glass Mountain. Hopefully some of you all have gotten to visit. If not, definitely add it to your list. Yeah, it flowed totally of obsidian. It does get a pretty significant amount of snow, so you can really only get there in the summer months, but it's very, very neat to see. And then another little point to talk about, and that a lot of you probably know, is that obsidian was traditionally used by lots of native peoples for the manufacture of spear and projectile points. And lava beds is the homeland of the Modoc people, so they definitely use the obsidian in the making of those products for thousands of years. Another lava rock for us to talk about is pumice. So that's another high silica rock. It's actually often found in association with obsidian. You could find pumice on one side of Glass Mountain and through a lot of lava beds. And chemically, obsidian and pumice are identical. But pumice has a more porous texture. It's not as smooth and glassy like obsidian. And that's due to the fact that the parent magma is highly gas charged. It erupts really explosively. Like if you were to shake up a bottle or can of soda and then open it, it'd be kind of like that. So yeah, very, very highly gas charged. So a little different than obsidian, but yeah, basically identically, chemically they're the same. All right, now to talk about a few types of volcanoes. And we have an image here, or a drawing of people looking at a volcano exploding. It'd be quite something to see. So first, the composite volcano or stratovolcano, it has a really large volcanic cone that's built by extrusions of ash, lava, and shallow intrusions. It's characterized by steep sides and conical shape, often erupts really violently. And we're really fortunate if you live around lava beds or really in any area of the Cascades, you typically can see a composite volcano pretty easily. So lava beds, we can see Mount Shasta most clear days. Really nice clear day, we can see into Oregon and see Mount McLaughlin as well. And so yeah, we probably can see a composite volcano fairly easily if you're in our area. And one that you've probably heard of that's pretty well known is Mount St. Helens. And so here's a photo of it before 1980. It's at 9,677 feet. And after slumbering for about 123 years, Mount St. Helens was awakened in the spring of 1980 with a swarm of earthquakes. The morning was May 18th of that 1980, and at 8:32 a.m., a magnitude 5.1 earthquake struck, causing the north side of the mountain to loosen and fall, causing the largest avalanche in recorded history. And we have an image here of that eruption happening. You can just see all of that ash just spewing out of Mount St. Helens. Temperatures reached 300 degrees Celsius. That's very, very hot. Caused snow and ice to melt, which is what caused the landslide. All of that heat happening and melting all of that snow and all of that ice. Leveled a lot of forests. We have an image here of trees and everything just being totally pummeled, and they're just covered in ash. And yeah, we have an image here of Mount St. Helens with all the ash. Ash was thrust 17 miles high. And yeah, it's a huge release of pressure. If you have a family member or a friend who was alive during this time, maybe ask them about it. It would have been really something crazy to live through if they were nearby. Even neighboring states would have been impacted since the ash was thrust so high and so far. The ash deposited by the eruption blanketed 22,000 square miles, and that airborne ash had circled the globe within 15 days. It's about 540 million tons of ash distributed over that 22,000 square miles. And the image we have here is of a helicopter looking like kind of flying around some of the aftermath of that eruption. Looks like what it's seen that's destroyed is covered in snow, but that's ash, lots and lots of ash. And trees and vegetation that survived the volcano's initial surge were eventually smothered beneath that blanket of ash. So we have a picture here of a tree, some sort of an evergreen that is covered just in tons and tons of ash. And then following that eruption, Mount St. Helens entered a neo-eruptive phase. It changed a little bit. Over the next 6 years, gentler episodes built up this lava dome. That's what we see in the image here, at the center of a newly formed crater. The dome grew to a height of 876 feet above the crater floor. So we have like that little dome within the larger crater, and I think our next photo will kind of pan out a little bit. Yeah, there it is, beautiful. That's a view of Mount St. Helens in 1982. It's about 2 years later, and you can see the little dome in the middle there, right in the crater. And because of its recent volcanic activity, Mount St. Helens now has become a perfect natural laboratory that scientists from all around the world can study, firsthand the process of ecological succession, how species recovered, how they adapt, and how they repopulate. So in this image here, we see Mount St. Helens, we see its new crater, its new dome, but also some vegetation growing too. And its elevation is now 8,364 feet. So lost a little bit of height. One volcano, though, that's not known a lot for their height are shield volcanoes. They can be pretty big, though. In contrast to really large composite volcanoes, they're characterized by shallow profiles, multiple magma chambers and vents, and gentle eruptions that are a little more slow-moving typically. And one shield volcano we, of course, have to talk about if you're learning about lava beds is the Medicine Lake Shield Volcano. And it's located at the southern end of the Cascade Volcanic Arc. And if you come to the Visitor Center on lava beds, you'll be on this volcano. You're kind of on the northern flank of it. It's really hard to see the entirety of it. It's 800 square miles, so it's pretty large. And yeah, like most shield volcanoes, it's characterized by being really broad, really sloping. So it won't have a really pointy, defined peak like you can see in the image. Mount Shasta there, really, really broad, really sloping. So that's why the picture we have here is kind of a nice panoramic view that does a really good job of getting the entire Medicine Lake volcano. Yeah, very challenging to do. But we're a big fan of this volcano at Lava Beds, so let's put the lava in lava beds. Really fun volcano to learn about, and to learn about the features of a shield volcano as well. So, lucky us. So we're going to talk next about the features of a shield volcano. There's a lot of them. We have a nice photo here just showing a couple of things we'll chat about. I think it's actually taken from the top of Scontian Butte. which is a cinder cone. That's the first feature we'll talk about. So cinder cone represents a relatively small gas-charged eruption within typically a larger volcanic complex. It's like the simplest form of a volcano. Cinders or scoria, they're basaltic in composition, and they owe their porosity to that infusion of gas within the parent magma. They erupt in a fiery fountain, and then they harden, and they fall to the ground in a cone-shaped pile known as a cinder cone. So the cinder cone we have pictured here, you have Scontian Butte. It's our one cinder cone within lava beds. It has a really nice trail to the top, 0.7 miles, you gain about 500 feet. And there is a fire lookout tower at the top that was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s. It's staffed in the summer months. Even when it's not staffed though, you can still hike up to that fire lookout tower and enjoy the view. It's pretty spectacular. And here we have a cinder cone in action on Kilauea Volcano in Hawaii. And then we have cinder cones. You also have spatter cones. So you have an image here of one of the best examples of lava beds, which is at Fleener chimneys. And that, instead of it being like a gas-powered explosion, this is more of an explosion and extrusion of thick, pasty lava. And some of those spatter cones that are left at Fleener's are really deep. They have a depth of about 150 feet. Really nice picnic area out there as well. So it's a really great area to explore. And then again, here's one in action at Kilauea Volcano in Hawaii as well. Very, very active volcanic place still. All right, now we're to craters. They're steep-sided circular depressions formed by explosion or collapse of a volcanic vent. And we have an image here of our very own Mammoth Crater from above. And that is one we talk about quite a bit. Flows from Mammoth Crater cover 70% of the park's surface. And if you've ever gone to go on a ranger-led tour at lava beds or read any information about our geology, you go up on Cave Loop, you're probably going to learn a bit about Mammoth Crater and the connection to the caves there, because most of the caves there were formed from flows from the Mammoth Crater about 36,000 years ago, give or take a little bit. All right, what's next? Ooh, this is nice. We have an image here of a really good fresh lava flow. Looks like a lava river. This is probably where a lava lake overflowed from a crater. It's making a nice river. It's overspilling. It's starting to cut through the ground. And as it keeps flowing and cutting, it's going to eventually, keep flowing, keep cutting like I just mentioned. And that layer at the top is going to start to cool and to harden. It's exposed to the atmosphere, to that colder air. It's like if you're ever out in the winter hiking around and you live somewhere where there is some seasonal events and maybe there's a river by you and the top of it is ice, but you still see the river flowing. It's because the top is exposed to that cold air and it's made into ice, but the rest is still going and still flowing, cutting through the ground, and that lava tube is just traveling and traveling until the lava that it's originated from runs out of lava pretty much, and it's going to leave behind a lava tube for us to explore. So the bottom right, we have a lava tube in there for a little bit, it looks like, and then the upper left, you still see that nice fresh flow of lava that lava tube came from. And then we do have some breakdown pictured in the lava tube, and those are all the little rocks that you see kind of scattered about the floor of the cave. No worries, those have probably been there for a very long time, probably pretty soon after the cave itself was formed. Lava tube cave. A lava tube cave presents a really fascinating world for us to explore. It has its own unique geology, ecology, and biology. So we have a photo here of a really nice tunnel in a lava tube cave, and let's explore those a little bit more. Ooh, this is a nice one. We have a caver here checking out our Valentine cave in this photo by Dave Bunnell. And as you explore caves at lava beds, look for evidence that these caves were once fluid dynamic systems. So we have to definitely start chatting a bit more about the formations that you'll find in a lava tube, since we talked a bit already about how they're formed. Lavasicles, one of my favorites. These formations are providing evidence of molten lava that dripped from the ceiling of a developing tube. If you've ever been in a solution type cave or a limestone cave like Carlsbad Caverns or Shasta Caverns, you know, you have your soda straws and your stalactites and stalagmites, and those are all kind of formed drip by drip over a long period of time. But again, lavasicles were formed pretty quickly after the initial tube. As that molten lava was dripping from the ceiling, they hardened really quickly when it got contact with that cold air. So I really enjoy lavasicles. They're technically a stalactite, but very, very different, and they're probably not going to achieve the same size as stalactites found, again, in those limestone or those solution caves. And though they're a little different than those formations, we still just want to make sure that we're enjoying them with our eyes and not our hands. And same with all the other formations we're going to talk about today. We want to make sure we protect them for our visit as well as the visits of others in the future. Ooh, dripstone. So it's basically the same thing as lavasicles. It's just instead of it dripping from the ceiling, it's dripping from the sides. So our prior picture, you could see the lavasicles, these little gray nubs kind of dripping from the ceiling. And then the image here, we have it dripping on the sides of the cave. Benches. These ones are pretty interesting. This is indicating the level at which the lava pooled for an extended period of time before it continued downstream. Really great examples of these can be found in Valentine Cave. Pillars. So in your solution or your limestone type caves, I mentioned there's soda straws and stalactites, and those are the formations that grow on the ceiling. And then you have your stalagmites that grow on the ground, and those are all, drip by drip. That soda straw is kind of plugging up, creating the stalactite, and then the stalactite drip by drip is dripping down and forming that stalagmite, and eventually they can grow together and form a column or a pillar. A lava tube, again, a little different. Instead of, the two formations becoming friends, lavasicles, again, they're not going to achieve the same size as those solution type cave stalactites, because again, they were formed more at the time that the cave was formed from that molten lava dripping back down. This was pillars. They're basically representing some kind of an obstruction. There was something in the way that this really hot, like 2,000 degree lava, for some crazy reason, could not get through. It's just like, nope, not today. There's some kind of a big tree or a rock, and the lava just flowed around it, made two channels of lava, and then met back again on the other side. So you have an image of a really impressive pillar here. We have some really nice ones, again in Valentine Cave, pretty stellar cave for lots of really great lava tube type formations. And also Hercules, Leg, and Juniper on the Cave Loop Road. They have some really nice pillars too that I enjoyed checking out. Ooh, cave coral, also known as cave popcorn. Makes me kind of hungry though when I call it that. It's a form of secondary mineralization that commonly occurs on the ceilings of lava tubes. I feel like you can kind of see it on the sides though too. Lava rock's porosity allows groundwater and surface water to readily percolate into cave systems and deposits minerals like calcium carbonate. And so the image here, you kind of see that little bit of white, so that's a little bit of mineralization happening there. And it just makes, a shape that does really closely resemble coral. And then we have our cave ice, which is just incredible to think about. Caves that were formed by lava, they can have ice in them. They're only found in a few caves of lava beds, and conditions have to be just right. The cave has to be just deep enough so that that cold winter air is going to sink to the bottom, and then it's not able to rise above the warmer air masses overlaying it, so that cold air remains at those depths year-round, and then the water that's dripping into the cave is going to freeze. It makes some really interesting formations. So we have an image on the left of a caver observing what almost look like these frozen waterfalls, and then a caver on the right checking out what's kind of like a ice stalagmite, really. It's made from drips from the ceiling dripping down, and as it drips up, 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 and freezes up, 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 makes these really interesting stalagmite type shapes. I've also heard people call them ice hoodoos, which is really fun. Skull Cave has an ice floor year-round, and I believe both these images are from our Crystal Ice Cave. That you can only go into on a guided tour when they're offered. So a little tough to get into, but it is quite spectacular and literally very cool. Ooh, and like I said, my favorites, caves as habitat. So you're going to talk about things that live in caves. Of course, have to mention bats. We have a photo here of a Townsend big-eared bat with its wings outstretched, having a great time. It's just one of 15 bat species that utilize lava beds caves. Some of the caves are closed during the summer months because they're occupied by maternal bat colonies of this type of bat having their babies. And then in the winter months, we have some other caves that are closed because some Townsends and others are hibernating. We just want to make sure we're giving the bats as much peace as possible. And they like the caves. They can stay all nice and clustered together and warm. So we have a nice image of some Townsend big-eared bats here all clustered together. And then we have an image here of a big colony of bats, a big outflight. And maybe it's some Mexican free-tailed bats, also known as Brazilian free-tailed bats. If you've ever have visited Carlsbad Caverns or maybe the Congress Bridge in Austin, Texas, you've probably been fortunate enough to, if you have visited there, to see a massive outflight like this one pictured. We do have Mexican free-taileds at lava beds, but where most of them are is in an area that's easy for us to check out. So you probably won't see a big outflight like this at lava beds, but if you go up on the Cave Loop Road, if you visit in the summer months, you might see some bats exiting some of the caves up there, or if you stay in the campground, you can see quite a few there as well. And here we have a picture of one of our wood rat friends. They are in many of the caves. If you go into a cave, you may not see a wood rat, but you might see something they left behind. They collect woody debris, little sticks and such from outside the caves to add that to their nest. And sometimes those are right inside the caves, sometimes a little further in. But yeah, they're pretty cozy in the caves as well, like our bat friends are. Pacific tree frogs, again, like the cave ice, this is another thing that I just think is so interesting. Not a place that you would imagine there would be ice, and nor Pacific tree frogs. It's pretty crazy. They're not found in all the caves, but they're found in some of them. So conditions have to be just perfect, have to be just moist enough, and there has to be like maybe a skylight coming down that can grow some ferns and moss for them to live in. So if you're lucky, you might see one of these. Not super common, but they are in some of the caves at lava beds. Ooh, Rocky Mountain rubber boa. Again, if you're lucky, you might see one of these. I know that may not seem like the case to some of you all who don't like snakes very much, but yeah, you aren't really going to see them very often. And they're not as scary as they may seem. They're only about 4 to 3 feet long, kind of a greenish, grayish color. And most likely they're after like those wood rats and other small mammals, and they're going to be in the entrance of a cave. I've worked at lava beds for about 3.5 years, and I think I've only seen one once. So yeah, I gotta get out there more and see if I see them. And I think I've met visitors who have seen one maybe like once or twice a year. So not very often that you'll see them, but they're very, very happy in the entrance where they can get some food. Woo. Troglopheles, Troglophiles, and Troglobites. What are these? I got a few images popping it up here. A little cave spider and a little cave mite, a little cave centipede it looks like. Your creatures in caves, but kind of in different ways. Your Troglobites, those are creatures that exclusively live in caves. They wouldn't be able to live on the surface, wouldn't be very happy in there. Typically invertebrates, have no pigmentation, really long antenna, lots of different things that make them really well suited to living in the caves. They have lots of adaptations. Troglophiles, they probably pretty happy in the caves most of the time, and that's where most of them do spend most of their lives. But they could make it on the surface if they really had to, which is kind of nice, I think, to have the option. Trogloxenes, those are what we call cave visitors, and actually a lot of the creatures that we just chatted about, probably most of those be classified as a cave visitor. Rocky Mountain river boas and wood rats, bats even, I mean, they're sleeping in the caves, then they go out. All of our bats at lava beds eat insects, so they need to go out and about at night, like we saw in that big outflight picture, and get their bugs. So there's a few different characteristics of cave creatures, But Troglobites and most Troglophiles, those are the really like creepy crawly ones. I don't see too many of those myself either, but you might see a cave cricket or a cave spider as you're venturing in our lava tubes. And cave slime. This is a fun one. It's mats and mats, this really interesting bacteria. It's like a colony of bacteria, and they like to be where it's wet and where it's moist, but they don't absorb the water because it's hydrophobic, so the water just kind of beads up on the bacteria. Light directed at the surface of the slime is refracted by the water, which makes like this yellowish color that the bacteria typically is. It's yellowish, sometimes it's greenish. Yeah, a couple different colors there, silver even, but it makes it glitter, like gold or silver, whatever color your light is kind of reflecting back. Really, really neat stuff. But I like the cave slime and all the cave creatures. Just want to make sure you're being respectful. If you were to swipe that cave slime, it would take a really long time for it to grow back, and once you attempted to take it to the surface anyway, it wouldn't be able to survive up there. It's a troglobite. And so you just make sure if you see any cave creatures in cave life, like the cave slime, to be really, really considerate of it. It's really, really beautiful to see. And you can see cave slime in several of our caves, some in Mushpot, Valentine, Golden Dome, and Hopkins Chocolate. And be kind of like it is in the image here. We have the two little soda straws, and then you kind of see clusters of the cave slime growing around it, but it's really, really cool stuff. All right, and then lastly, we'll talk a bit about exploring the caves at lava beds. And we want to talk about caving safely and caving softly. What does that mean? Caving safely, I bet you all have some guesses. Never go caving alone. Excellent. Yeah, we have an image here of a friend who's caving. She's just crawled under a little tunnel here, and it looks like she has another friend with her. So that's great. If you can, try to go with at least 3 or 4 people. It's nice to have a little group. Take at least 2 light sources. 3 is probably even better, but 2 and some extra batteries, that would probably be good too. It looks like our friends have a flashlight, and who knows, maybe they have a headlamp and some batteries tucked in there. Wear appropriate safety gear. So in the image, our friends have good closed-toed shoes, they have gloves, they have bump hats or some kind of head protection. Bump hats are what we sell in our Lava Beds Natural History Association bookstore. And it's kind of like a helmet, but it doesn't have a chin strap basically. But if you do have a helmet of your own, you have a bike helmet or a construction helmet, yeah, bring them. Those would work great. And let someone know your plans. Hey, I'm going to lava beds. I'll be back tonight. Or hey, I'm going to lava beds and I'm going camping. I'll be back tomorrow. And yeah, it's a good idea. Sometimes people will want to spend even more time in the park. And so maybe let them know it might be a couple days because it's a pretty cool place to explore. But at least letting someone know your plans and a rough timeline of when you expect to be back is a great idea. Caving softly. How am I going to make the cave soft? What does this one mean? Oh, I like this. Yep, never leave anything in the caves. We talked a lot about our different cave friends who are maybe just using the caves for a little bit or they're living in there all the time. We don't want to confuse the friends that are just using the entrances. If you were to leave any food and they tried to dwell a little further into the cave because they could smell that food, they may not be able to get back out very easily. So we want to make sure we're not leaving any food or any trash or anything that has a smell to protect our cave creature friends, and also just to keep the cave looking really nice and clean for everybody. Stay on the main path. I know this is a little bit of a tricky one at lava beds. Some of our caves do have actual paths in them that have been built. Some though, it's just a good idea to try to stick to the path where most people have walked. You can tell like, oh yeah, everyone goes this way, then you should go that way as well. Never cause damage to the caves. Yeah, we talked a bit when we were talking about formations. Just want to enjoy them with your eyes and not your hands. If everyone wanted to break off a lavasicle and take them home with them, there wouldn't be any lavasicles left for anyone just to enjoy. So take some pictures, but please don't cause any damage to the caves. Ooh, leave sleeping bats sleeping. I like that one. So again, we do have some caves that will close whenever the bats are hibernating or migrating. If there's a significant colony of them, we just close those off. But some caves may still have a few bats in there, and we may be walking along and we might see one of them. So you'll make sure you're giving them their space, you're not talking too loudly, and just point out to your friends and family if there's a bat there, and then keep slowly moving along. We really, really appreciate it. Oh, I like this. We have a lovely photo of lava beds at sunset and a quote by Pablo Picasso. And it says, "Every act of creation is first of all an act of destruction." I think I would agree with that. And lava beds, that fits us very, very well. And if you'd like to learn more about our education program, because again, this is just one of 3 different programs we offer. We also have traveling trunks, and we can even have a ranger come to your classroom, some of the other things. Then please check out this link on our website, www.nps.gov/labe/learn/classrooms/index.htm. We'd love to answer any additional questions that you have, and we thank you so very much for joining our presentation today. Well, thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you soon at Lava Beds National Monument.